In this video, we kick off the new Sofa Session series. It's Sofa Sessions 2.0. Stay tuned. Hey there, folks, and welcome back for another video. I'm your host, CDB, and I'm going to have a little Stella Artois today. Here's to all of you folks, and we are returning to the Sofa Sessions. This is Sofa Sessions Rebooted, Sofa Sessions 2.0, whatever you want to call it. Return of the Sofa Sessions, and again, here's to you. Stella Artois, a beer I really like. Easy drinking. Very nice indeed. So I wanted to return to the Sofa Sessions, not to rant and rave and not to carry on and throw bombs and so on, but just to tell you about some of the things that's been going on. Today, mostly it's focused around the post office. I've had some very interesting experiences with the post office as of late, and I know a lot of us order and send a lot of things through the U.S. Post Office, or Postal Service, I should say. Let me say at the onset, there's many, many great folks that work at the post office. So if you work at the post office, I'm certainly not trying to be offensive in any way. I'm simply sharing my experience. I've had some doozies lately, and I'm just putting this out there for your consideration. So the first interesting thing that happened to me was a few weeks ago, I sent about $400 worth of straight razors to someone in Greensboro, North Carolina, which is probably a 5-hour drive from here, maybe not quite that far. It's not really a long distance. Priority mail. Sent them with signature confirmation on it, which means when that package is delivered, someone has to sign for it too, and that way you know they got the package. So I paid the extra money, got the signature verification so I could make sure that that box was in the hands of the right people and they signed for it. So I sent that on Monday, and by Wednesday, the package had gotten to Greensboro. Then it floated around in Greensboro for 3 or 4 days for who knows what reason, just bouncing around from distribution center to here to there. And finally, I looked at the tracking, and I was like, this is odd. You know, it was supposed to be there on Friday. It didn't arrive. It was supposed to be there on Saturday. It did not arrive. So I looked at the tracking on Sunday, and it said it was delivered on Sunday. So I reached out to the guy I sent him to and said, hey, I'm glad to see those razors finally arrived, because we were both going, what's going on with these razors in the post office? And he was like, what? I said, yeah, I'm glad to see they finally showed up, you know. And he said, I haven't received any razors. And I was like, oh boy, you know, my heart sunk. And I was thinking, what in the world is going on? Here we go again. So as it turns out, he went and checked the post office box. And on Sunday, the post office delivered the razors and just put them in his mailbox. Nobody signed for them. So presumably, the postman signed the gentleman's name for him, even though I asked him, I said, were you home Sunday? He said, yeah. Were there cars in the driveway? Yeah. The postman just did not bother bringing them to the door or getting a signature. Now, I realize because of the Rona, what's happening a lot of times with signature confirmation is the postman will bring it to you, and then they'll sign on your behalf, but they hand it to you. This guy didn't do any of that. He simply put it in the mailbox and went on and signed for it himself. Never told anybody it was there, never did anything. And if someone had seen that and taken those out of the post office, the guy who I sent him to would have been really in a bad way, because it said he signed for them. He did not sign for them. So the postal official basically falsified his signature, did not alert him to the package, left it in his mailbox. And I just want everyone to be aware of this. If you're using the U.S. Post Service, even if you select signature confirmation, it all depends on the postman to do their job. And this one simply did not do his job. So next story, also involving the post office. My wife and I are on iPhone upgrade plans, and so she was due for an upgrade. And so we got her a new phone. It arrived, and then when you get the new phone, they send you the box to ship the old one back. And you return that, and then you don't have to pay anything. And so I packaged it up. I took it back and mailed it through the post office like over a month ago. And I went to the post office website and entered the tracking and told it to alert me when it was delivered. And it was never delivered. And I was like, well, at some point, it'll show up. And so yesterday I got a text on my phone that said, hey, this is AT&T. We still have not received the old phone. And if we don't receive it by X date, it will be X amount of money. And I was like, what the heck? So I went and looked at the tracking. And yes, it was mailed. They have record of it being mailed. They have record of it being at the post office, but then they have no more record of it. And so this phone, presumably, is either somewhere lost in transit, is still in transit over a month later, or is lost. And so I called the phone company, AT&T, and they were like, yeah, this does happen, but you've got the tracking. And so what will happen is when that date comes, if we haven't received the phone yet, you're going to get billed for it, and then call us and we'll take it off. And I'm like, well, why should I have to call to take it off? I mailed it. They're like, oh yeah, we'll take care of it, don't worry, but we're going to bill you, and because we can't stop that process. And I'm like, once again, the post office strikes again. This phone is lost somewhere. Again, I, the customer, doing everything I need to do. In the previous circumstance, paying more to get a signature confirmation to make sure it's getting where it's going and to make sure I know it's getting, totally not doing their job. Just terrible, terrible, terrible job. The next case involves the post office as well. So I wanted to fill out an absentee ballot for voting because my mom is undergone some procedures and has a compromised immune system, and I know I'm going to be around her some on the holidays. And my mother-in-law also has been undergoing chemo for cancer and has a compromised immune system, and I'm around her as well. So I try to limit my exposure to being in public places for their benefit. And so I filled out the application for an absentee ballot. When that ballot arrived, let me just show you, I'll put up on the screen, a picture of that envelope, the way it arrived. Now, I'm not showing you the actual ballot because there is some laws around taking photography in the voting place, or at the polling place, I should say, and I don't want to violate any laws, but I'll show you how that arrived to me. It had many holes in it, so when I took the actual ballot out, it was clear to me that that ballot would not be able to go through the counting machine. And so it had like 8 different holes in it, and I was just like, what the heck? It was clearly marked voting material. It was just all messed up. The ballot itself had holes in it. I showed it to my wife, and she just shook her head and went, what the heck? So now that's the end of the post office part of the story, but in comes the county government part of the story. So I called the county clerk's office, and I'm like, hey, I received my absentee ballot, but it is not serviceable. It cannot be used. It's not going to go through your machine because it's ripped up. And they said, they transferred me to another department and said, okay, bring it on by and we'll take care of it. And I said, this is an absentee ballot. The reason that I'm requesting it is because of the Rona. I don't really want to be in a public place where there's a lot of folks right now. And so that's the whole purpose for me sending the absentee or requesting an absentee ballot. Why would I want to bring it to you? I did not want to come to the courthouse to vote. And they're like, oh, okay, well, if you send it to us, mark it spoiled, we'll send you an application to get another one. And at that time I said, hey, I don't know if we have enough time. That was a couple of weeks out at that time from the election. They were like, oh, no, don't worry about it. Plenty of time. It just has to be postmarked by the 28th or something of October. And I said, okay. So I sent that back the very next day. And because I knew they were not likely to do what they said they were going to do, which was to send me an application for another one, I sent an application for another one right away. So they would have ample time to send me another absentee ballot. Well, guess what? Of course, they never sent me another absentee ballot. They got the other one back, and I know it because when I went to vote in person, they had it marked down that an absentee ballot was returned. So the county clerk then drops the ball, not doing what they said they were going to do, which was send me an app, even though I got ahead of them sent them another application, and they simply did not send me another absentee ballot. So I went over and I voted in person, and that was fine. They actually had a good process this time. Everything was good. But I will say, during the primary, which I believe was in July, it was an absolute mess when I voted in person. The folks did not know what they were doing. Half of them were not wearing the mask, and at that time, people were very concerned about the Rona, even more so than now. It was an absolute and utter mess. We have a voter ID law here in West Virginia. They did not check any kind of ID whatsoever, and virtually no one knew what they were doing but one poll worker. They gave me the wrong ballot twice. It was an absolute mess, which was part of the reason I said, well, maybe I'll try absentee this time. But I will say, during the general election when I voted, it was very smooth. They followed the law, very professional, so good job. The experience, both with the post office and the county election part of government, was just very poor on every level. So please follow up on things if you're using the post office or if you're using some of these services, especially when you're voting. You have to make sure that your vote is going to be counted. If you're counting on them to look out for you, no. Make sure to follow up. Make sure you're tracking that ballot to make sure it's counted, because you have no idea what's going to happen with the post office when you send it back. Who knows? I don't even care if you put it registered mail. I don't care if you put it signature. It may not turn up. I had another mail story for you. I had a package come to me internationally via registered mail that was delivered to a business that was on a completely different street, completely different house number. Or actually the building, it was a business. It was not even a private residence. And when I realized it was misdelivered, because it said it had been delivered and I didn't have it, I called the post office, and then they told me that I couldn't even open a case, that the sender had to open a case. And I'm like, yeah, but somebody else has my package. And they just did not care whatsoever. Finally, it did arrive to me a number of days late. So I'm telling you, folks, follow up on these things that you are shipping. If you can, try to develop a decent relationship with your postal carrier. Be nice, and hopefully they will look out for you, because I'm telling you, the service I have had as of late has been poor, and it's quite disheartening. It really is. So the last subject for today, and I mentioned this in a video the other day, but our buddy Steve Walker, and I will link his channel below, has the Rona. It's a bad time. It's right around Christmas. Also, he can't go to work for 2 weeks, does not get paid. So I want to once again remind everybody that this is still a very serious thing. It's something we should all keep in mind. Please, I encourage you not to gather in large crowds. Do your best to knock this down as much as we possibly can, because it's affecting a lot of people. It's affecting a lot of people. So I hope you will consider that. And lastly, I wanted to say once again, I want to thank everybody for the kind words regarding my mother and my mother-in-law. It's still a very, very tough time. We don't know what the future holds there. I do know yesterday my wife told me that my mother-in-law's cancer is not in remission. It is spreading. And we just hope and pray that something can be done to keep that in check. We're going to obviously hope and pray. And it's the same thing for my mother. I'm about to go down and help my mother. My brother has been there helping her. My sister has also been there. And now I'm going to go and help, do things for my mom and dad also while she's recuperating. And I just thank you so much for your kind words and continued thoughts and prayers. I really do appreciate it. And I just ask once again, if you can, if there's an opportunity to be kind, take it. It's a time where there's a lot of people hurting. There's a lot of people not working. There's people like Steve that's got the Rona. We all know folks now who have been, if you're in this community, you've got to know somebody who's been affected at this point. So please be nice, keep them in your thoughts. And most importantly, keep yourself and your family safe. And so that brings the first episode of Sofa Sessions 2.0 to a close. I hope you appreciate that I'm not ranting old school, firing bombs. I just don't have the energy to do that, honestly. I'm always going to have my opinions, but I don't feel like fighting with folks. I will have spirited debates, but when it gets to fighting and mudslinging, I just don't feel like doing. There's too many real world things to think about. So I want to thank you very much for joining me, and I hope that you will join me for the next one. As always, I'm your host, CDB, reminding you, it's your shave, do it your way, but please, please be nice. Until next time, God bless.